Hi everyone, I'm Jesse Cox, internet guy and Final Fantasy XVI fanboy. I am here today before the pre-launch event with the cast of Final Fantasy XVI and the man, the myth, the legend himself, Koji. So before we jump in, I think everyone wants to know, first off, who you are and, more importantly, who you voice.
I'm Nina Indis, and I voice Benedicta Harmon, Warden of the Wind, Dominant of Garuda.
My name's Ben Starr, and I play Clive Rossfield.
My name's David Menken. I play Barnabas Tharm, Dominant of Odin.
My name's Ralph Einson. I play Sidolphus Telemann. My dominant is Ramu.
So I'm not sure if it's set in for you yet, sort of the whole experience or just being a part of this cast.
I'm having an out-of-body experience. I think like we're all feeling that, right? Yeah. The scale of like seeing what this game is kind of dawning on us because it's been such a private thing for all of us for so long.
To come back and see what it was all for is suddenly like, oh my God.
I didn't realize what a big deal it was and how big the franchise was until like recently, until all the launches and all the press. I've been like, wow, this is huge.
It was a secret for a long time. I know we changed the names during the auditions, like Clive was Clint, I think.
Richmond.
Clint Richmond.
Yeah, yeah. And the dominants were demonites in the thing. Yeah, I remember that.
Considering I have you here, Koji, what was it like trying to keep that all a secret, but also direct people, also stay in the booth and wrangle them? What was that experience?
I mean, it was kind of overwhelming. I mean, I had had the opportunity to work on my previous projects on Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy VII, Dirge of Cerberus, got to go into the studio and work with the voice actors before, but this time it was a little bit different because the voice recording in English was first, because we're doing all the facial capture from English, voice recordings from English. It started with having to decide on the cast, and that was all pretty much on the English team to decide. And so it's finding out, okay, what are going to be, the voices of these characters, who are the actors that we're going to get to play them, and then kind of bringing them to life in the studio.
The refreshing thing about this whole process has been the fact that because it is English first, we have been able to kind of like bring a lot of ourselves to these characters. And I think that kind of like, hopefully it comes across in the game, right? Where we see that. It's been such a liberating experience to kind of like build the characters from the ground up, which has been really lovely.
For me, it was mostly to just go in this session very open and ready to explore and do whatever you guys would direct me to do. It was kind of like an exploration session, and I felt so free to just explore and fail and do things in different ways. So that was kind of my process.
Two things we did have on this project, which you usually don't when you're recording a game. We had fun, and we had time. What was great was that we would come into a session, or at least I did, where we could actually talk about what was the point of what we were saying. Koji and the team were there, and they were explaining exactly why this was happening, and then I could say, well, actually, do you mind if I try saying it like this instead? And you guys were so open to everything like that.
That comes across really well. In the game, the voices show the time put in. And so to hear you explain the process of how it all came to be is really enlightening because it's there. It's, on the page or in the game, for example. And it's very, very fun. And so, yeah, I love that. What was that like for you then, sitting there and having to sort of work through, I'll call it the magic of video game creation?
It made my job a lot easier. You mentioned before, again, like they would come into the studio, they would work together. We had the blessing of doing ensemble recordings early on. Usually, again, when you're working off of a source language, you don't get to bring in two people because you have to match lengths of previously recorded lines. And so you can't have two people in the booth at the same time because it's just, it doesn't work that way. Right. But this time, because we were recording first, and we thought, bring in people together so they can create that rapport. They can create that bond between the two characters, and learning from the cast that, okay, this is how these two characters are going to naturally communicate affected how we ended up going back and rewriting lines. And so they became the characters, and they should probably get writing credits on this as well, because they did affect a lot of the lines in the game. I mean, a lot of them were coming from, ad libs in the studio, suggestions from them.
Speaking of lines, let's just get there. What would you say was your favorite line to record?
Fucking dog.
Brilliant.
One of. Actually, my favorite line is too much of a spoiler, so I'm not going to go there. But fucking dog was one. It felt really cathartic and yeah, it was great.
There's a line which is at the end of the Awakening trailer, the first ever trailer that we had, which I think is really cool, is we really wanted to make an impact with the first trailer.
Yeah.
And so the line at the end of the trailer is, "I'll kill you if it's the last thing I do." I remember you coming to me and being like, "Actually, Ben, we're going to record two versions of this line. One is, I'll kill you if it's the last thing I do. The other one will be, I'll kill you, I'll fucking kill you." And so we recorded that line, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this Final Fantasy trailer is going to go out. And the end of it's going to be, "I'll kill you, I'll fucking kill you." And now when you hear that line in the game, you understand the emotional resonance of what that is. And I think that, like you said, it's the emotional lines that gave us that sense of catharsis. It gave us that feeling of kind of like mild therapy. How are you feeling sad? Cry it out in the booth.
Yeah.
And yeah, so those lines, the ones that really kind of conjured up emotion.
Yeah.
For me, I wish I could say, but that would be too many spoilers. So I'll tell a little story. When the trailer came out and the first line is, "Who are we?" 15 minutes later, about 3 sound engineers that I've worked with went, "David, are you in Final Fantasy?" And of course I couldn't answer them. But yeah, it was just hearing it all come together. It was magical.
I did have some great lines, some very serious lines, and some great storylines, but it was the throwaways that I enjoyed.
Sid does have the best throwaway lines. So you mentioned Final Fantasy and being able to got to keep it quiet, can't tell anyone, going in, don't really know that it's Final Fantasy yet. What is your experience with the franchise?
I mean, I'm a super fan, so this is the franchise that has defined my life. So I just keep telling you guys, I feel like I'm, Charlie Bucket with a ticket to the chocolate factory right now. It's really mad that I get to be here, and I get to kind of share it with fans, and I also get to share it with creators of work that I absolutely adore and admire. And I feel like I don't really know where I am in this because in 1999 I played Final Fantasy VIII for the first time, and then I played 7, 9, 10, 6. I played all of them. I would buy them. I would buy the special Uber Deluxe edition on the day one that it would come out. I watched Kingsglaive, day one. I watched Brotherhood when 15 came out. I'm that guy, right? I'm the person. And so the fact that I'm not just buying the deluxe edition, I'm here on stage with you guys, I get to share it with you, is just such an honor to be around people that I love, as not just professionally, but as friends as well. So it's really cool.
Working in the games industry, about Final Fantasy. I think, Nina, you and I were both in 14 in Shadowbringers. Very small role for me, but kind of, I think, put me on the radar for you guys.
When it comes to the actual characters, was there anything that stood out in them to you that you were like, oh, I get this, or oh, that's where I'm going to pull from to figure this character out? What was the sort of the moment where you got it?
It's for me very much with the military history of Sid and his having served in the Waluda Guards and all of this kind of stuff, and thinking of his history and how he's lived his life, his adult life, and how that has burnt that kind of gallows humor.
When you're playing a character, you can't just play them as, evil or whatever. You need to find out what it is that drives them. And I think it's, faith and sacrifice. As soon as you find that, then you can understand why the character that you're playing is the way they are. And then the possibilities are endless.
obviously the pressure of it being like a character that you play as is the entire game is like, how do you make him human? I've said this before, I will say it to the ends of the earth. So it's try and make him within that mold as relatable as possible. And all I could do is just draw on my own life experiences. I brought so much of me and what was going on in my life to the role at that point, and this sense of loss and trying to comprehend how you can continue living with that loss. It's just was so incredibly raw, and I kind of really want to thank like the entire team for helping me through that part of my life and allowing me to bring that to the character as well.
I second Ben with that. I draw upon what's happening to me as I'm recording. To be able to play each scene as authentically as possible, I kind of have to put myself in the now and draw upon what emotions I have available in that moment. Sometimes, you know, we'd record a scene and I didn't really know exactly what would come out. I would just kind of follow the dialogue and see what happened. I think that's the thing that I like about Benedicta the most, is the unpredictability about her.
Mahiro-san wrote this wonderful script that from the beginning, he went into it thinking, we want to tell a story that feels real. That's something that people can relate to. Again, it's a Final Fantasy, so it still has to have that kind of Final Fantasy feel to it, but we want to go beyond that. We want to make it something that's visceral, something that's relatable, and figuring out how to do that. And figuring out how to make something relatable is just making the characters, you know, be themselves and bringing that humanity into it. That yes, we have these fantastical characters that on the inside are these, can turn into these, you know, giant fantastical beings, but at the core, they're human. They have their flaws, they have the things that drive them, they have the things that they love, and all of those are going to be so different, and they're going to come together and clash in different ways. They meld like Sid and Clive do, they clash like Benedicta and Clive do. And just seeing that kind of, it's intertwined and it's so complex, and then kind of throwing the ball to these guys and having them put their life experiences into it, their past job experiences, their whole selves into these characters and letting them kind of run with it. I think that's the only way to do it, because if you try to force lines onto it, then it just ends up sounding really unnatural and not something that you can relate with.
Without spoiling anything, what do you think fans can look forward to in Final Fantasy XVI?
Every single character in this game is so well written and so well acted, and yeah, getting to know every single character, I think people should be very excited for that.
For me, it's the story. It's just such a good story, and you can expect just, as Yoshi P has said, it's a roller coaster. It's a ride you get on and you really don't want to get off.
It's going to be hours of your life. I can't believe it, because it's crazy to think that people are going to spend weeks, months, they're going to come back to it. The fact that it is time well spent.
But I think this game has humanity in the characters, which means that in heavy, serious situations, people make jokes. They do light things to try and encourage each other. And so that humanity of the game, I think, is what sets it apart from a lot of others.
I mean, it's an emotional roller coaster ride. I mean, these guys left everything on the studio floor, and it's going to make you laugh. It's going to make you angry, and it's going to make you cry. If you're not in tears by the end of this game, you're not human.
The game is amazing. It is visually a treat, sonically a treat. Everything about it is so much fun. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me and really get into your characters and the creation process. This is going to be really exciting. Thank you all for joining me.
PlayStation